Welcome to Betrayal Diaries, where the stories are raw, the emotions are real, and the silence finally breaks. Here, we tell the kinds of stories people are too afraid to say out loud. Stories about love and betrayal, about marriages built on secrets, about people who gave everything and were left wondering if it was ever enough. These are not fairy tales. These are moments taken from real lives, sometimes sent to us, sometimes lived by us, but always told with truth and care. In today's story, a man discovers that the daughter he's raised for 5 years may not be his by blood. But what hurts more than the truth is that it was hidden from him by the one person he trusted most. This is a story of fatherhood, forgiveness, and the boundaries of love. And it starts now.
It was late August, and the city had just begun to dry after a relentless summer rain. Ethan sat quietly in his car, parked across the street from his house, a modest two-story home painted in pale sandstone, nestled in a quiet suburb of Portland. The engine had been off for 15 minutes, but his hands still rested stiffly on the steering wheel. Inside the house, his daughter Lily would be waiting for him with that squeaky little voice, yelling, "Daddy!" from the top of the stairs. But today, he couldn't walk in like he used to. Something had broken loose inside him. A soft buzz from his phone stirred him. A calendar notification popped up. Tonight, 5-year wedding anniversary dinner, 7 p.m. He let out a dry laugh. 5 years. 5 years of family photos, school pickups, bedtime stories, and hand-packed lunches. 5 years building a life he thought was built on trust. And yet, all it took was one archived message, stumbled upon while looking for an old photo on Claire's phone, to unravel everything. Do you ever wonder what life would be like if Livy was ours? Claire responded with a half-laughing emoji. Not a denial, not an answer. That message was dated 1 week before their wedding. He hadn't told Claire what he'd seen. Not yet. For 3 days he'd said nothing, just observed her, the way she sang off-key while folding laundry, the way she knelt to tie Lily's shoelaces, the way she kissed Ethan goodnight like nothing had changed. But something had changed. Something irreversible. He kept hearing the question on a loop. Was Lily even his daughter? When he finally entered the house, the familiar scent of lemon-scented floor cleaner and fresh laundry filled the hallway. Lily came bounding down the stairs in her mismatched socks, holding a crayon drawing in one hand. "Daddy, Daddy, look! I drew a dolphin in a hat!" He forced a smile, bent down and kissed the top of her head. Her hair still smelled of baby shampoo. She was real, warm, alive. But in that moment, she felt like someone else's child, like a beautiful lie that he had believed for too long. "That's amazing, sweetheart. Daddy's a little tired today. Can you show Mommy for now?" He climbed the stairs slowly, like every step was dragging the weight of an invisible truth. In their bedroom, the evening light filtered through sheer curtains, casting soft shadows across the floor. He glanced at the framed wedding photo on the nightstand. Claire was smiling, not too wide, just enough to keep something hidden. He didn't know how to look at her anymore. That night, he lay awake while Lily curled up beside him. Her little hand rested on his chest, fingers twitching in sleep like tiny roots searching for safety. He looked at her. The curve of her cheeks, the way her lips pursed in dreams. He had held her through fevers, sung lullabies off-key, changed diapers at 3 a.m. while Claire slept. He had loved her with every part of himself. And now, with a single message, he was no longer sure if that love had a place to belong.
The next morning, Portland's sky opened up to a rare patch of light. The rain had passed, but the storm inside Ethan hadn't. Claire and Lily had gone out. Claire said they were visiting her mother across town. Ethan said little in response. He simply nodded and waved, his smile polite, unreadable. Once the front door clicked shut and the car pulled away, he walked back upstairs with quiet, deliberate steps. In their bedroom, the air was still warm from the morning sun. Ethan stood for a while, staring at the made bed. The comforter was tucked in perfectly. Claire always took pride in the small things: clean corners, fresh flowers by the window, the family calendar arranged on the fridge with color-coded stickers. But what else had she arranged so carefully? What else had she hidden just as neatly? He knelt beside the bed and pulled out an old cedar box, the one Claire had called her memory chest. She used to keep little things inside it: handwritten notes, ticket stubs, dried flowers from their first road trip to the Oregon coast. Things that were supposed to mean something. Things that once did. The box creaked as he opened it. The scent of lavender potpourri floated up, mingling with the scent of old paper and ink. Inside were familiar keepsakes: their wedding invitation tied with twine, a Polaroid of Claire in a sun hat, a baby sock that once belonged to Lily. Ethan's chest tightened at the sight. Then, his fingers brushed against something unfamiliar: a sealed envelope, yellowing at the edges, tucked between pages of an old journal. It had no stamp, no return address, just 2 lines written on the back in blue ink. "If you're still keeping this, it means you haven't forgotten me. March 2017, the day you told me you were pregnant." Ethan's heart stuttered. He opened the letter with slow hands, as if the paper might burn him. The handwriting was shaky, unpolished, raw, unfiltered. "Claire, I don't know whether to be happy or afraid. You said you're getting married, but what if that baby is mine? I'm not blaming you. I just wish we had faced the truth instead of burying it. If you choose silence, I'll respect that. But know this: part of me will always carry the shadow of you and her." No signature. But Ethan didn't need one. He felt the truth in every uneven stroke of ink. The room felt colder now, like the sunlight had receded. Ethan sat back on the floor, the letter still in his hand. The hum of the ceiling fan above only made the silence louder. Had he been nothing more than a shelter Claire ran to when her world collapsed? Had she married a woman who never fully let go of someone else? Was Lily ever really his? He got up and walked over to the window and stared out at the backyard. The maple tree they planted together their first spring in the house was swaying gently in the breeze, tall, proud, unaware. Everything seemed so solid, so rooted. But now he realized maybe he had been watering a garden of lies. Later that afternoon, Claire and Lily returned. From the kitchen, Claire called out, "Lily ate an entire grilled cheese at Mom's. You wouldn't believe it." "That's great," Ethan replied, barely glancing up. Claire paused, watching him as she took off her coat. Her smile faltered. "You okay? You've been distant lately." Ethan shrugged. His voice was calm, too calm. Just tired. But inside, he was nothing but. Inside, he was unraveling, strand by strand. question by question. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure what kind of man Claire thought he was anymore. Because now, neither was he.
That evening, the kitchen was warm with the smell of rosemary and butter. Claire had made grilled lemon chicken, Ethan's favorite, with a side of roasted potatoes. She moved around the kitchen with the same ease as always, humming softly under her breath. To anyone watching from the outside, it was a picture of domestic peace. But to Ethan, it felt like a staged set. One flick of the wrist, and it could all come crashing down. He sat at the table, fork untouched, watching Claire's back as she stirred the sauce. Lily was upstairs, tucked into bed after begging for just one more story. The house was quiet now, just the sound of oil sizzling in the pan and the dull hum of the fridge. Ethan cleared his throat. "Did you season the potatoes?" Claire turned, smiling. "Of course, you know how picky you are." He didn't smile back. His voice came out low, almost flat. "Is Lily my daughter?" The sound of the spatula slipping from Claire's hand echoed in the silence. She turned slowly. Her eyes searched his face like she was hoping it was a joke. It wasn't. Claire's lips parted, but no words came. Her hands trembled slightly. She reached behind her and shut off the stove. "Ethan, how long have you known?" 3 days. I saw the message, and I found the letter." She sank into the chair across from him, hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I never meant for this to happen," she whispered. "That doesn't answer the question." Claire looked down, then up again. Her voice cracked. "No, she's not biologically yours." The world didn't explode. There was no screaming, no broken plates. Just the subtle shift of something collapsing inside Ethan, quietly, completely. "Why?" he asked, his voice a rasp. "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire closed her eyes. "Because I was afraid that if I told you, you'd leave. And by the time I wanted to tell you, you already loved her. You were already her dad. You were so good at it, so natural. I didn't want to ruin that." Ethan stood up, backed away from the table. "You didn't give me a choice, Claire." She followed him with her eyes, not moving. "I know. I took that from you, and I live with that guilt every day. But Ethan, please believe me when I say I love you, and I love what we built." "What we built," he laughed bitterly. "We built this on a lie." Claire stood up now, voice stronger. "No, we built it on love. A complicated, messy kind of love, yes, but real. Maybe more real than anything I've ever had. You are her father. You always have been." He turned away, pacing toward the living room, the walls closing in. "You made me love someone who was never mine." Claire stepped closer. "She's always been yours. Maybe not in blood, but in every way that matters. She calls you Dad. She runs to you when she scrapes her knee. She draws pictures of you every week at school. Isn't that real enough?" He didn't answer. Because the truth was, it was real, and that made it hurt even more. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He sat by the window, watching the shadow of the backyard maple tree dance under the street lamp. He thought about Lily, her little hands clutching his shirt at night, her laughter when he pushed her on the swing, the way she said, "I love you," like it was the only thing that ever mattered. He thought about Claire, the woman who had lied, the woman who had cried, and the woman he had once chosen above all others. Was he still that man? He didn't know.
Sunday morning arrived quietly. The sky was soft and pale over the neighborhood, blanketed by low clouds. Ethan sat on the floor of Lily's bedroom, leaning against a bookshelf. A stuffed giraffe lay beside him, one eye missing, a casualty from some long-forgotten bedtime adventure. Across from him, Lily slept soundly in her tiny bed, surrounded by plush toys and crayon drawings taped crookedly to the walls. Her blanket had slipped off her shoulder, her mouth half open in a dream. The nightlight bathed her face in a warm orange glow. Ethan stared at her. Her chest rose and fell steady. Her hair spilled across the pillow in messy curls. She looked so small, so completely at peace. And he, her father, her not-father, sat silently, as if watching a painting he could no longer touch. He thought about the first time he held her, the weight of her in his arms, impossibly light and impossibly heavy at the same time. He thought about the time she cried all night from teething, and he walked with her in circles until sunrise. About the science projects, the boo-boos, the tea parties with imaginary friends, the night she fell asleep on his chest, trusting him with her whole world. And now there was a crack running through it all. He wanted to pretend it didn't matter. He wanted to believe that love was enough, that years of bedtime stories and scraped knees made him more her father than any blood test ever could. But still, there was a door in his heart he didn't know how to close. When Lily finally stirred, her voice was sleepy and soft. "Daddy, why are you sitting there?" Ethan blinked back the weight behind his eyes and smiled faintly. "Oh, just watching you sleep." "That's weird," she giggled. "Yeah, I guess it is." She stretched and sat up, hair a mess, reaching for her stuffed rabbit. "Can we go to the park later?" "Oh, maybe. Let's see how the weather looks." She nodded, content with that. Then, as if remembering something very important, she crawled over and sat in his lap. "Daddy?" "If I wasn't your real kid, would you still love me?" Ethan froze. The air seemed to stop moving. He looked down at her, her eyes wide and searching, her little fingers playing with the hem of his shirt. There was no way she could know, no way she understood what she was asking. And yet, she had asked the one question that mattered most. "Where did you hear that?" he asked gently. "No one told me. I just wondered." He took a deep breath, swallowed hard, and answered without hesitation. "Yes. 1,000 times yes. Even if I had different parents before? Even then. Especially then." Lily smiled. She pressed her head into his chest like she always did. "Good. Because I only want you to be my daddy." His arms tightened around her. She smelled like baby shampoo and maple syrup. He wanted to stay in that moment forever, where everything was simple, where love was unquestioned, where titles like real didn't exist. Later that afternoon, Claire offered to take Lily to her mother's again. Ethan agreed without a word. After they left, he found himself in Lily's room once more, sitting on her bed. He opened the drawer where she kept her important things, a sticker sheet, a broken bracelet, and a small notebook with drawings and scribbles. On the first page, in shaky kindergarten handwriting, were the words, "My daddy is my hero. He knows how to braid hair and fix things. When I'm sad, he makes pancakes." Ethan pressed his hand over the words and closed his eyes. It wasn't about blood. It never had been. He could walk away from Claire. Maybe he even should. But Lily, she was the part of his life he couldn't and wouldn't leave behind.
The town where Ethan had grown up was 2 hours away, a small patch of Oregon hills, quiet streets, and forgotten memories. He hadn't been back in years, but that Sunday, after dropping Lily off at Clara's sister's place with only a vague excuse, he got in his car and drove north. From the photo frames, from Lily's voice, from everything that reminded him of the man he used to be, or thought he was. The small chapel sat at the edge of town, nestled behind a field of dried grass and dandelions. It had no sign, no stained glass, just wood faded by time, a cross that leaned slightly to the left, and a rickety bench under an old oak tree. It hadn't changed. Ethan stepped inside. It was empty except for the man who had once baptized him, Father Whitaker. Now older, thinner, but his eyes still clear. He sat quietly at the front, cleaning the dust off a wooden hymn stand. "Ethan Chambers," the priest said without turning around. "I was wondering when you'd come back." Ethan gave a tired smile. "How'd you know I would?" "Because people only come to this place when their hands are too full and their hearts too tired." They sat on the bench outside under the shade of the oak tree. The wind moved through the branches like a whisper. Ethan didn't speak for a long time. When he did, his voice cracked. "She's not mine, my daughter, not biologically. Claire lied. She was pregnant before we married. I raised Lily for 5 years thinking she was mine. I love her more than anything. But now, I feel like I've lost something. Not just her, but who I was." Whitaker nodded slowly. "You feel like your foundation broke." "Yes. But Ethan, foundations are just the beginning of a house. You still have the walls, the roof, the warmth. So the question is, are you still willing to live there?" Ethan looked down at his hands. "I don't know. Part of me wants to run, start over, erase it all. But Lily, she's everything. She's my reason. And yet she's also the reminder of the lie." "Children don't lie, Ethan. They just love, simply, fiercely, even when adults don't deserve it." They sat in silence for a while. A few birds chirped in the distance. The wind was gentle, not like the storm inside him, but something softer. "Did you ever love someone who broke you?" Ethan asked suddenly. "Yes," the priest answered without pause, "and I forgave them, not because they earned it, but because I needed to let go of the weight." "So I should forgive Claire?" "I didn't say that." Ethan looked at him. "Then what are you saying?" "That forgiveness and staying are two different things. You can forgive and still walk away. Or you can stay, rebuild, and learn to trust again. But whatever you do it with open eyes, not wounded ones." Ethan left the chapel as the afternoon light filtered gold through the oak leaves. He didn't have an answer, but he had something else, a question worth carrying. Was love stronger than betrayal? Was fatherhood defined by blood or by presence? Could a man stay not because he was trapped, but because he still believed there was something worth saving? He didn't know yet, but he was ready to start asking.
The house was quiet when Ethan returned. Evening light streamed through the windows, warm and orange. The kind of light that made everything look softer, more forgiving. Claire was in the kitchen, unpacking groceries.
The faint scent of basil and dish soap hung in the air. She looked up when he entered, her eyes filled with hesitation. "You're back?" she said, more like a question than a greeting. Ethan nodded, set his keys on the counter. He didn't remove his coat. For a moment, neither of them moved. "We need to talk," he said at last. Claire turned off the faucet, dried her hands slowly, waited. "I'm not leaving," Ethan began. "Not yet. Not today. Not for Lily." Her breath caught, relief flashing through her eyes too quickly. "But that doesn't mean everything is okay. It's not." Claire nodded. She didn't try to hug him. She didn't reach for his hand. Maybe she knew better now. "I'll take the guest room," she said quietly. "No," Ethan said. "I'll stay there. Lily shouldn't wonder why her mom isn't around when she wakes up." Claire looked down at the floor. There were a dozen things she could have said, but she only whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on her. I'm not giving up on me either." That night, Ethan unpacked a spare set of sheets into the guest room, a small, windowless space with faded walls and an old bookshelf that once held his college novels. He placed a framed photo of Lily on the nightstand. Just her, no Claire. Her smile looked freer when it didn't remind him of what was lost. The new arrangement was not dramatic, it was quiet. No slammed doors, no ultimatums, just space. A line drawn in stillness. Lily noticed, of course. The next morning, over cereal, she asked, "Why did Daddy sleep in the blue room?" Claire hesitated, but Ethan stepped in. "Sometimes grown-ups need space to think." "Like when I go sit in the corner with my crayons?" "Exactly like that." She accepted it without fuss. Children didn't need full explanations, just honesty wrapped in safety. The days that followed fell into a strange rhythm. Ethan still packed Lily's lunch, still walked her to the bus stop, still fixed her hair the way she liked, with the yellow clip, not the pink one. He and Claire spoke politely, but only when necessary. Each word carried more weight now, because there was no room for small talk between two people tiptoeing around old wounds. One evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Claire stood in the hallway holding a folded letter. "I wrote this," she said, offering it. "Not for answers, just for understanding." Ethan took it, didn't open it. "Thank you." Then, after a beat, "I'll read it when I'm ready." She nodded. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. And for the first time since the truth shattered everything, Ethan felt that maybe, just maybe, silence didn't always mean absence. Sometimes it was respect. That night, alone in the guest room, Ethan sat by the small window, staring at the maple tree outside. The leaves had begun to change, early, it seemed, red creeping in at the edges of green. It wasn't the end of summer. It was the beginning of something else.
The sky was clear that night. For the first time in days, the air smelled like pine and cooling asphalt instead of rain. Ethan sat on the front porch, a cup of lukewarm tea in his hands. The porch light cast long, soft shadows across the wooden steps. Somewhere in the distance, a neighbor's wind chimes whispered against the breeze. He wasn't thinking about the past or the future. He was just sitting, letting the silence fill in all the places where words used to go. The screen door creaked. Lily stepped outside in her pajamas, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, the one missing an ear. Her feet were bare. Her hair was a sleepy mess. "Daddy?"
Can I sit with you?" Ethan smiled gently, setting the tea aside. "Always." She climbed into his lap without hesitation, her small body warm against his chest. They sat like that for a long time. No questions, no explanations, just the quiet weight of connection. After a few minutes, Lily looked up at him, her voice barely louder than a whisper. "You're not mad at me, are you?" The question knocked the breath out of him. "Why would I be mad at you, sweetheart?" "Because you and Mommy are different. You don't sit together anymore. You don't laugh. And you sleep in the blue room now." Ethan closed his eyes. He hadn't wanted to explain any of this. He thought he could shield her from it, this fracture between adults, this line drawn through a house once whole. But Lily had noticed. Of course she had. Children always do. "None of this is your fault," he said softly. "And no, I'm not mad at you. Not even a little." She tilted her head. "Even if I'm not really yours?" His body went still. "What do you mean?" Lily shrugged. "I don't know. I heard Mommy crying once. She said something like that on the phone. That you weren't my real dad." She said it like she was reading the weather, factual, emotionless, but Ethan felt something crack in his chest. He pulled her closer. "Listen to me," he said, steady now. "You are my daughter. You have been since the day I held you in my arms. No one, nothing, can ever change that." She looked at him wide-eyed. "Even if someone else helped make me?" "Even then. Especially then." A small smile broke across her face. She leaned in, rested her head against his chest. "Okay. I just wanted to make sure." The wind picked up slightly, rustling the hedges along the sidewalk. A dog barked 2 houses down. Life moved on, unknowing, uncaring, as father and daughter sat wrapped in each other's quiet truths. And Ethan realized something simple and stunning. This little girl, this child who had no reason to question his love, had felt the shift in their world. And yet, she came to him. Chose him. Again and again. Later that night, when he tucked her into bed, she reached for his hand. "Will you stay here tonight?" He hesitated. But then he nodded, laying down beside her. As she drifted off, her fingers still curled around his, he whispered into her hair, "You're mine, Lily. Always."
It started with a text, a simple notification on Claire's phone, left on the kitchen counter, screen glowing while she was upstairs putting Lily to bed. Ethan didn't mean to look, but the message was there, open, unmissable. "Thanks for meeting me. I'm glad we could finally find closure. Wishing you and Lily peace." No name, but Ethan knew. He knew exactly who it was from. That night, the air in the house felt thinner. Claire came down in sweatpants, hair damp from Lily's bath time. "She's finally asleep," she said, smiling. "Took 3 stories and the song." Ethan didn't answer. He was sitting on the couch, holding a small wooden frame in his hands, a photo of the 3 of them at the lake last fall, under the gold trees, laughing, whole,
unbroken. Claire's smile faded. Her body stilled. The silence was louder than any confession. "It wasn't what you think." "Don't," he said. "Don't explain. Just tell me, did you meet him?" "Yes." She didn't cry. She didn't beg. "I needed to end it. For good. I needed to say it face to face, Ethan. He reached out. I didn't plan for it, but I thought if I looked him in the eye and said, 'I'm done,' it would be real." "You could have told me." "I was afraid you'd say no." "You're right. I would have." He stood up, the photo still in his hands. "You told me everything was out in the open, that there were no more secrets. You promised. And I meant it, but I also wanted closure for myself. I didn't want any piece of him left inside this house." Ethan laughed bitterly. "You brought him in anyway." He walked past her, opened the back door, and stepped out into the night. The wind had picked up, cold, sharp. The leaves from the maple tree rustled like paper being torn. He sat on the porch step, staring at the photo frame in his hands. The faces inside it were smiling, unaware. Fake? No, just unaware of the storm to come. He took the photo out, gently, then, without thinking, tore it in half. Claire's face on one side, his and Lily's on the other. He didn't throw either piece away. He just stared at them side by side on his lap, like they didn't know how to belong to the same frame anymore. And in that quiet, heart-stretching moment, he asked himself the question that had no clear answer. How many times can a person lie to you before love becomes a habit instead of a choice? He had forgiven Claire once. He had stayed. He had rebuilt. He had let his heart find room for doubt and truth and pain. But this second fracture? It didn't hurt in the same place. It hurt deeper. Because it wasn't just betrayal. It was betrayal after being forgiven. Inside, the house was still lit, warm, safe-looking. But something had shifted. Ethan wasn't sure if he could go back in. He wasn't sure if he wanted to. And maybe the worst part was, he still loved her. He still loved the way Lily said "Mommy" with joy. Still loved the family dinners, the messy living room, the smell of Claire's perfume on the pillows. He still loved her voice, even when it trembled. But love, he was beginning to realize, was not the only ingredient in a marriage. Trust was the foundation, and theirs had cracked again. You can forgive once, maybe even twice, but how do you keep rebuilding something that keeps choosing to fall apart? What would you do? Would you stay for the child, for the history, for the love that still aches? Or would you walk away, not in anger, but in dignity? If you were Ethan, what would you choose?